Chris, are you ready?
Ready to record the podcast? I think
Ready
so.
ready to record? Yes. No, I mean like are you ready?
Ready or not, here we go.
Here we go.
There are roughly 119,740,000 kilometers between the planets Venus and Mars.
Somewhere in the middle lies Earth.
That's one small step for man,
Omnibus.
That's a gaslighter.
Love bombing.
Narcissist. Homemaker.
Deal breaker.
one giant leap for mankind.
If he wanted to, he would.
5 signs of avoidant attachment.
You wouldn't consider men and women equal.
Houston, we've had a problem.
Join us in the space between Venus and Mars.
Hi. Welcome back to the space between Venus and Mars. I'm Jessie.
I'm Chris.
Today we are getting into a topic that can be a little tender for some of our younger listeners or our listeners who are actively in the dating pool and are having trouble with commitment.
Guns are out.
Guns are out. No, today we're going to talk about a concept that I think kind of people reach this question when they get to the DTR phase or define the relationship phase of a relationship, I feel. It is the concept of when people are ready. When are men ready for a relationship? When are women ready for a relationship?
Mm.
And it's so funny because I'll share this with you guys. When Chris and when I initially pitched this episode to Chris, I said, well, it's only men that are never ready for a relationship. Women are always ready to be in a relationship. And he vehemently said, that's not true though. That's not true.
That's not true. That's not true. But actually, I think that both sides struggle. And what we're talking about, I mean, I think more than if we're really going to get armchair, psychologist about this.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these behaviors, it's maybe too pathological, but the people that struggle, I think, with that question of, are you ready? I think you would define as avoidance or I mean, I'd say anxious attachers could also be within this realm.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of stuff of just that comes out of insecurity that prevents people from being quote unquote ready.
Yeah.
And self-sabotaging of where they are in the timeline of wanting to be ready. But I mean, there's a lot to unpack here as far as like there's so many variables that go into the current epidemic of people not being ready.
Yeah. I mean, from my perspective, in my media silo and in my life. Yeah, I mean, this concept of being ready and what that means has come up quite a bit. So, and I've been on both sides, I will say.
Sure. I think the interesting thing is that the timelines are always flip-flop. And it gets in the way of like, again, getting into like it being about people's insecurity. I would say that like I would have considered myself ready for a long time.
Yeah.
Got out of a really long-term relationship and then got into something else and found myself on the other side of that and like avoiding wanting to pin down the commitment or like say like what we were and everything like that. And it took me a while and time to work on myself to be like, oh, this is not to say it's a fault in myself, but it's more, it was me waiting for a destination that was never going to arrive. And I think that that's kind of my thesis for this episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Is that it's sometimes in our minds more than we think. But yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, not to jump to the end too
Yeah,
fast
don't
here.
jump to the end. We want all the gory guts in the middle.
Gross.
So I think I want to start off, first of all, by just saying kind of the history of what being ready meant for women specifically.
Hmm.
And for a lot of human history, it was when you first got your period, or it's called menarche. And that was when a woman was ready. That was she had very little agency in that matter. It was like, okay, you got your period. Now you can bear children and we can marry you off to an elder or a man or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
to acquire resources to continue the family line, what have you. So women didn't really have a lot of agency in this process. It was dictated by nature alone. So that is the reality. On the other hand, for men, it was very different. Men had to kind of wait until they had sort of these markers of status in their village or community, whether that was proving that they're enough of a warrior or demonstrating they had a certain amount of resources or wealth. We can go as far back as, I wouldn't say like Neolithic periods, but definitely certain tribes even today, like it's like you don't you have to have a certain amount of scars on your body or whatever, whatever the case may be, to prove that you can attract a woman in the tribe or whatever. Today, obviously, it's very, very different.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, it still feels like men, at least from my perspective, are operating of these same sort of like benchmarkers to feel as if they can sustain a relationship or be in a relationship or feel that they can provide in the way that they perhaps believe that they should. Um, Obviously for men or for women, it has changed quite a bit. At least in the modern, postmodern Western world, where women have more financial freedom and agency. Women now don't have to rely on men for financial security in the same way. So it seems like the markers of partnership have changed a little bit. And yet I still have friends that are looking for male companions who do hit a certain, we've talked about this on the show before, like who do hit a certain number, when they're looking in the dating marketplace, like they are looking for a man who makes a certain salary and has a certain emotional intelligence, has done kind of work on himself, whether that's in therapy or self-meditation or whatever, or certain things that he has achieved in life.
The unicorn.
And it's so interesting. I saw this thing from, what's that man who has glasses and he's bald? We can't put this in.
I can't believe I know who you're talking about. Is it Scott Galloway?
He talks about men a lot on
Scott
TV.
Galloway. Yeah.
Okay.
He's the one that's like, that's talking about how men are behind and
Okay. Okay. Sorry, we're not gonna
Yeah,
disrespect that man like that.
yes.
Okay.
Something from Scott Galloway.
I saw something that Scott Galloway had said on social, where he had said, women look for men who are successful in the workplace because it is a marker of so many things. It's a marker of like, can a man be a good leader? Can he, organize his life in a certain way? Like it signals a man who just has a set of standards for himself. Like if he's performing in the workplace, like it should be a signal for signals of success in his life or something. And I thought that was really interesting when he had said that, because while I totally agreed with him, I also found it to be like, but wait, like, I mean, and obviously I think about this stuff maybe more often than most people because you and I have this show, but in my head, I'm like, oh, the dad that like is really good at work and whatever is like never has time to spend with his family, So it's like, okay, he's good at work, he makes all this money, but he's like never home. And like, I guess that's just not the type of companionship I'm looking for. So
Sure.
I don't know. But I mean, that's not to say I'm not like, I'm looking for a man who like has achievements. But someone who's a workaholic isn't necessarily like number one on my list.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot to say there about just at the moment where we are in our culture right now. Especially in the US, we are an achievement-based culture. And I think that is why we've kind of become obsessed with the idea of like not only your partner needing to, be attractive to you and to also, match your humor, your emotional language, all that stuff, but also they have to impress you. And I think that that's created this weird dichotomy, I think, for some people, because they want to be ready for a relationship, but they themselves feel like they haven't reached the skill level of the person that they supposedly want to seek out, maybe.
Yeah.
And it sort of becomes a weird double standard that they almost hold against themselves. Or a self-critical lens that holds them back from feeling like they can open themselves up to a relationship like that. But I mean, that's not to say that these people don't exist that are like out there and are putting very stringent filters on things. And I think there's legitimate anxieties around that.
Yeah.
But as far as how that's affecting at large people's inability to get quote unquote ready for a relationship, there's just a lot. It's a very overwhelming time also. It
is an overwhelming time. I would also like to question, I mean, what does it even mean to be ready in the first place? Because I find that, I mean, and this is maybe just my perception of things, perhaps watching the latest season of Love is Blind, it seems like the women that find themselves to understand that they are ready, you see them get into these relationships, and then when they're confronted with the challenges of connection and relationship, at times, I see them really start to find the eject button as quickly as possible. And to me, that doesn't signal a lot of readiness, if that makes sense. Or what I would understand to be like true mature readiness. And then I see a lot of these men who don't think that they're ready, but maybe are a little more ready than they give themselves credit for. But it's funny. There was one couple on this latest season, season 10 of Love is Blind, where at the end, she had gone into the experience. She had already bought like a wedding dress. So she knew, she was like, I'm so ready. I want to be somebody's wife. Like, I'm ready to find my husband, all these things. And then at the end, the guy ended up being kind of a scum, a little bit. Okay. But at the end, he ended up leaving her, or like they didn't go forward with the wedding or anything, because he was like, that made me really nervous, because it just made me feel like she was going to marry whoever, regardless of who it was, instead of just like choosing me for me. And, he should have been more explicit about uh expressing those concerns to her, because I think that is something that a loving, kind person, he should have just said that. Instead, he just said it in his confessional. And then in the reunion, she was like, you never said something like that to me. Like, you should have said that that was a red flag for you. We would have been able to discuss that further. But the point is, like, I do sometimes, and I myself have fallen into this trap as well. Like, I feel like, oh, I'm so ready. Like, I know how to make a chicken roast, and I know how to do laundry, and I know how to make my own money, and I know how to take care of my cat, and I know how to keep a home and make a home. So I must be ready.
Mm.
And then I'm confronted with someone who is also a real life person. And I get like frustrated at like any little mistake or anything they do. And then I have to be like, wait. And then you see how, like, when people are like, marriage is just really hard. And then I'm confronted with the reality of like, wait, like, I can't control every thought and action of another person? Or and I'm like, oh, like, maybe that's a better signal of readiness, like my release for control and my release to accept somebody for all of their faults and their shortcomings and see them for who they are really as a person, but not what can they provide for me. Maybe that's a better signal of readiness than me knowing how to upkeep a home and take care of another living thing. And yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I think that totally makes sense, and I think it's something that everyone comes to a realization of eventually, because it's that classic thing of like, you can't judge people by like a harsher standard than like what you would want to judge yourself. I guess the thing that I've struggled with in readiness has been a lot of internal strife, I guess.
Okay. Say
And
more.
internal strife relating more to like my own sense of self and value than to the idea of like external conflict and releasing of that, as you were saying on your end. So I feel like
Yeah.
we're kind of inverses a little bit in that
Mm.
way. And I don't know if that's a universal thing, but I just find it
Mm.
interesting that I feel like in a weird macrocosm, that kind of is what the larger conversation is right now, is it not? A little bit of like men feeling like they have to work on themselves more, and women being
I think women
quick
need to
to
work on
judge.
themselves more too, though.
Sure.
Like, I'm not saying, I think we're almost in the same boats as like me letting go, understanding that I have to let go of control, and that signaling more readiness is me working on myself. Like, I only thought it was these external things of like, oh, being ready,
Yeah. Which is interesting, because I think like in my previous relationships, like I never really felt like I had a strong struggle with the control of things. I guess it was more, that was not really the issue for me there. And if anything, I think then the readiness for me when I moved on to the next relationship was more not getting a sense of control in the relationship, but I guess it was maybe a sense of control of my own purpose or destiny, maybe.
Mm.
And maybe that was more.
That's heavy work
Yeah.
to do internally.
Yeah. And I think that's
Wow.
that's what I think. There are a lot of men, I think, who do get out of long-term relationships or go through really horrifying grief or experiences.
Yeah.
And they come out of the other side. They come out, T.S. Eliot, they come out the hollow men, and they don't know how to feel full enough to push themselves to put themselves out there in
Yeah.
that sense, And in more sense, I think to feel like they can be responsible for someone else or to have people depend on them in the same way.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a scary thing for some people. And
Yeah. As
and
I've been told.
it's a long game, I think, for not game is the wrong word. It's a long journey
Yeah.
for some people because it I think some people are playing the it's not a sprint, it's a marathon thing. And I think when you're building a life and when you're building your own confidence back up, I think there's a lot of intentionality that needs to be done there. And I don't think that that's successful, or I think that like I said, I think a lot of people end up self-sabotaging themselves because of that.
I was going to say, you have a lot to say here. And the things that you're saying, I'm like, kind of go against your original thesis a little bit.
Huh?
I mean, like what you're describing.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
No, I'm sorry. You're right that as far as like where I ultimately am arcing this is towards like ultimately we say the journey is long, but I also believe at the end of the day, life is short. And like
Slay.
Yeah.
Slay.
Life is short and you do need to realize at a certain point that like we aren't perfect and like you can't show up to anything as like a completed idea of a person because like we heal in we heal in connection with other people and
Yeah.
we're going to stay hollow if we keep expecting that we're going to like stoicize our way out of it or meditate our way out of it or, you know, gym bro our way out of it. Whatever way we have that's like a coping way of trying to control that sense of self, you will certainly be able to get there just as easily, if not faster, when you're with someone else and you have a partner in it. Now, I know that that may sound also controversial to some people because I know that there's a lot of discourse right now around the idea of like man keeping and the idea of like other people being responsible for those parts of yourself. But I don't think that's really what it's about. I think it's really about being able, I don't know. I just genuinely think that, I mean, like that's like, it's community makes all of this work easier. I think it's kind of reductive to say that like, because you're coming in half formed, you know, partially formed into a relationship, that person that's you're calling your partner is actually now your therapist and they're doing all this free emotional labor for you. I think that that's just part of being in a relationship is like you both being there for each other and supporting each other. And I don't know.
Yeah. Terrence Rael talks about this in How Do I Get Through to You? And honestly, in all of his books too. But he says that relationships are places where you come to heal. And in the best relationships, you thrive. Like you grow in them. They're crucibles to heal in. When you look at them like that, they aren't like, you don't get into a relationship after you've healed. You go to relationships to get healed, you know? He does give this really beautiful analogy on how relationships are like homes or like you don't love your physical home necessarily. You love what you get to do inside of your home. But the home itself, like the actual walls, the roof, the rooms, like you don't love those specific things. You love what they fill inside. So relationships are just containers that we get to like put ourselves into and heal and create memories and sometimes good ones, sometimes bad ones, but we grow in them. And I really, really loved that analogy for a lot of different reasons. Um, what stood out to me the most when I was reading that was like, I understood this idea of like, oh, like it isn't this like grand destination that you arrive in, but it is this space that you inhabit.
Mhm.
And similar to like a home, like you have to do chores around the house to like keep it clean and like
Right.
you
Yeah,
have
yeah.
to like upkeep it and like the roof, you have to repair the roof and you have to, you know, repair the baseboards and the flooring and things like that. Like you can't just let things rot in the house. And yeah, but he gives this like really beautiful analogy and yeah, the relationships aren't it isn't just like this like top of the mountain you climb and then you're at the top and you're like, "Woohoo, reached the top. Finally got that girl." It's like, no, it's a space you inhabit and have to upkeep. And
Mm.
not have to upkeep, you get to upkeep. Like what a privilege it is to have shelter and a home and rooms to fill. But yeah, I mean it's hard because I think when we talk about this thing of like not being ready, I guess I can only speak for myself when the time when I was on that side of not
Mhm.
feeling like I was ready. I mean, I was really young and like I had a lot. I had a lot of life that I felt like I couldn't share with somebody else. And I didn't want to be responsible for anybody else,
Right. Yeah.
which I totally get. Um, but being on the other side of someone telling me they aren't ready, um, it's hard because I think for me, and I think for a lot of other people who are on the side of things, like I don't see any more healing that necessarily needs to be done to feel like we can inhabit a space. Like, let's just inhabit the space. you know?
Yeah. I don't think that there should be such a high, not to say that we should be so flippant about the idea of entering relationships, but I think the barrier has gotten so much higher than it used to be in the sense of like trying something out on and see how it feels, you know, to be in relation with another person. But I think again, people are so guarded now in more ways than one. And I think everyone's always jumping to the worst case scenario or reading things in the worst light that it feels too heavy sometimes for people to want to take that risk in the same way, which we shouldn't have to feel. Like you should feel lighter in a relationship, I guess. And that's tough that right now for so many people it's the opposite and they feel like no matter what relationship they enter into, it would be somehow more of a burden on them.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't help that the standard does feel so high on both ends, on both ends. I
Mhm.
mean, you know, I'll say this like, I do hear a lot of my friends talk about what they are looking for in their future husbands. And doing a lot of the research for this show, um, I don't know if it does exist,
What exists?
the men that they're looking for.
I see.
And
The unicorn. The unicorn
yeah,
is
the unicorn.
does not exist.
Um
Or if it
and
does show up, I don't think it's going to look like exactly what you imagined.
yeah,
In
right. And so in that sense, like I can sympathize with men.
mm,
I always like reading the Instagram comments of like girls kind of making something comment about a man or whatever. And then I look in the comments and see like who's commented. And so every once in a while, you'll get like that one guy and he gets like trashed in the comments from the other girls. But I remember there was this one guy who was like, dang, like I get it. I try and like get a nice job to get a nice car so I can get girls, like whatever. And that's still not enough or whatever. Like I go to the gym, like whatever, whatever. And then the girls in the comments are like, what? Like, you should be doing those things for yourself, not to get a girl.
Right.
And I was like, dang, the girlies are right.
Mm-hmm.
They're right.
But again, it's that thing of like, sometimes I think the guys, their sense of what's being ready, I don't think they're coming at it from the right angle. Because I think it's coming from a place of achievement. I don't think it's coming from a place of like what's going to be best for me, what helps me feel most myself.
Right.
What they're looking at it through the lens of how am I being perceived.
And at the same time, I see all these checklists that my friends have, and it's like, the bar is really fucking high.
So it's no wonder that the guys feel so perceived.
Yes, because they are being perceived.
Yeah.
Every single move, every single opinion, every single, down to what type of milk they drink, right?
What's the correct answer? I'm just curious.
It depends on the demo. It depends on the subsect you're in. You know what I mean? Depends on
if you're
what
in California, it better be oat, right? Because you don't want to soak up all the water from the almonds. If you're in
California, it better be oat. But also, like, if you're a gym bro, I'm like,
oh, raw.
Yeah. I mean, like, I've opened up to people drinking cow, but before I would have been like, you drink cow, like, you're crazy. My point is,
yeah, right.
you know, down to like what they listen to, the music they listen to, the images they look at, the car they drive, the type of shoes they wear, their interests, their hobbies. I mean, their media consumption, their politics. That is, I mean, when we're looking at that, and then you could look at the other side where it's like, I don't know. And this is where you have to give me some insight here, because I like what is it that men are looking at? Like, is the bar really high? Like on the other end? I don't know. Like, are men looking at women and being like, nah, she's not this enough. Nah, she's not that enough. I don't think that's the case right now. I think the case is dudes being like, she's too good for me. I don't know if she's too good for me.
Yeah, I'd say that's more. Well, at least in my spheres, I think that's more of what
in my
I'm feeling.
sphere, in my life.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of people that are feeling like, yeah, again, there's some impossible standard for them to meet, and they're just not going to be able to rise to that occasion. But I also do think that like women have been living under these exacting standards for forever, and and
women have never been good enough. I mean, there was a time in history up until recently, and even now, where it's like you can divorce your wife for whatever reason.
Yeah.
She looked at you the wrong way. You could give a note to the church or whatever and be just like, well, ready for a divorce. Whereas like the woman could only divorce a man if extenuating circumstances, I feel like.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that there's a lot that's so, I think in the precariousness of talking about this at this moment in time is just because you have to put it in the context of everything, as far as like, this is a relatively recent, shift in the way these dynamics are. And I think, again, we're still in the sea change itself right now. And I mean, even in politics and stuff, you keep seeing it sort of a pendulum going back and forth between like these communities that are like, the only thing that matters is traditional family values. And then back over here to like bodily autonomy and like not holding down people and letting people express themselves in whatever way possible. And we're really struggling to make sense of how relationships evolve with this all. And yeah, I guess that's the interesting part, is that similar, I guess, to a conversation about looks maxing, I think we should be recognizing that all of this stuff is kind of malarkey and we should be rising above it all
Yeah.
as far as like putting so much pressure on ourselves and everything like that. But we ultimately, at the end of the day, we're living in a capitalist Darwinian society that
Yeah.
has explicit winners and losers. So that's going to be the framework that we're going to end up filtering everything through every time.
Since the beginning of time, I guess, like there's always been status.
Well,
And
since possession, because there was a time, as we learned from the Neolithic dog, there was a time when there wasn't possession, so there wasn't greed, so there wasn't all of the mess that comes with that.
yeah, sorry. We should say that Chris and I saw this documentary on YouTube about women in the Neolithic era. It's very fascinating. We'll put it in the description. But yes, there was a time since the Bronze Age.
Yeah, since
we'll
the Bronze
say,
Age.
there has been an association of, whoever your partner is that will afford you some status and power. But it's just there's at least right as in the context of right now, like, and I mean we said this in episode 1, like there's so much money in keeping people siloed. There's so much money in keeping people feeling like they aren't ready. Think
Mhm.
about how big of a business that is. The business of like gotta work on yourself, hustle culture, like even just, we were talking about this a couple weeks ago, the Manosphere documentary. Like, think about how much money all those men make on these men who are like, gotta be fitter, gotta be jacked so I can get girls who they're not even getting girls. I don't, there's the objective there. We couldn't figure one out. Like,
Yeah. All the girls you can pull if you take these delta wave brain gummies
yeah.
and
Or
this
inject.
muscle powder
Yeah.
and et
Right.
cetera. And then on the other side of it, this specific makeup that like is amazing and this
Right. But
these Spanx.
But
like,
also too, like think about how much money is made in like right, these Spanx, these whatever, but not just that, like all these people being like, "Oh, well, this is the perfect man that you need to be, thinking about, or this is like this guy's not good enough for this." Like this it's like, yeah, I don't know. It's just there's so much money people are making off this idea of people feeling like they're not ready on both sides.
mhm.
On men, it's very obvious to me, where the money grab is coming from. For women, it's been there already with the beauty standards of it all, but now it's just flipped on its head because the truth is like this readiness or this sort of relationship that I think women truly want to embody
Mhm.
of this like equal companionship that women are really craving and are trying to achieve. And then in the same breath, have these, you know, maybe I don't want to use the word standards because, people should have boundaries and needs that need to be met and boundaries that should be kept.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like they're trying to find these unicorns, right? And it almost gives the sense that like women aren't ready for the realness and the true companionship ought to be for us to see each other truly and clearly like as equals. And at the same time, I just want to clarify. And at the same time, I think men do have a long way to go. Like, I think that I don't think that women are full of hot air and have no, um, the patriarchy is still working really hard day and night, to keep the foot on women's neck.
Mhm.
And, you know, I just think that women have an opportunity maybe it's not even women have an opportunity. Like, I think men just need to realize that there's a foot on their neck too. There's a foot on their neck too. And the same readiness that maybe women have not had the luxury of like understanding because women were freaking bought off, or bought or sold for so many centuries and millennia, like because they have had no agency. Like I feel like boys are now realizing like, hey, I actually don't have a lot of agency either. There's a foot on my neck as well. And it's like part of me wants to be like, hey boys, like wake up, welcome to the club. Like it sucks having the foot on your neck, like, and not feeling like you're ready and not feeling like you have agency and not feeling like you whatever. Like come to the club. Like let's have some solidarity in this, that everything sucks and like we can help each other.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah. But the thing that's being sold to us right now by the culture is being an individual and to be yourself.
Right.
And so we're in this post-individualist society where putting your own sense of self before anyone else and anything else results in us feeling more disconnected. And again, it's putting the pressure on us to figure ourselves out in order to be ready for relationships when, we're going to find ourselves in relationships just as much as we will outside of them.
Yeah.
And you convincing yourself that you're not ready for it, I think is just you giving into a consumer machine that kind of wants us all to be buying everything for ourselves. And I don't know.
Right.
I think it's obviously way more complicated than that. But
I think this whole idea of being ready or the illusion of feeling like we need to be ready is one of the things that's like really taking up space in the space. In the space between Venus and Mars. Like,
yeah, it's taking all the oxygen in the room, I think.
It's taking up so much oxygen in the room, and it's like keeping us from. And the crazy thing is, like, it's all. Yes, it's true. And also because of where we're at right now and all the things that feel so scary and anxious and anxiety ridden, like it is a bit of a boogeyman. Like, I'm not ready. It's like, it's like, and you don't, and guess what? And maybe you don't have to be, because there is no perfect version of being ready.
Mm-hmm.
And especially right now, like we're so redefining the rules in what we want for ourselves. I think now's a great time in history. Talk about the Bronze Age. What about right now, the beginning of the AI age? Like we're redefining so many things in human existence right now. What our relationship is to work, what our relationship is to our consciousness, what our relationship is to machines, to people, to our environment around us, our consumption. I think now is more time than ever to also think about our relationship with relationships. And like what they mean for us. And I think like COVID was a real test for that too. Like I think the pandemic, like what are we willing to do for our loved ones? And even just the state of the economy, people having to be in more multi-generational homes, maybe in a way that they didn't think so before, and they didn't think of themselves as that they would in this time of their life before. So I think that we have to be open to the idea of being ready, or what that meant for our parents isn't going to be the same for what being ready means for us now. So I think we should just to hell with the idea overall and just say, let's figure this out together. Whether you're ready or not, here we come. Right? Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes,
Thank you.
yes. Insert applause here. Well, I feel much more ready after that conversation.
Oh, good.
Yes. And I hope everyone's ready to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast.
Yes.
And
Please
is ready for another exciting episode in 2 weeks.
Yes. Please rate, review, and subscribe. We would really appreciate it.
And we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Our show is made by us, Chris Stold and Jesse Rojas. Our producer is the lovely Marianne Rojas. Our composer and mixer extraordinaire is Rosalind Wong, and all of our art is carefully handcrafted by Jacob Bankoff. If you haven't already, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. You can find us there under @VenusandMarsPod. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts.